Hello and welcome to another edition of Mastering Dungeons. I'm Sean Merwin, here with the slightly toastier than usual Teos Abadia. Hey, Teos.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sean. I'm in Phoenix for Thanksgiving week, so I'm using my laptop. Hopefully the audio is okay.
I'm sure that you will sound as intelligent as you always do.
Huh?
Exactly. You are making my point for me. So,
no more smarts.
Yes. This mastering our own intellect is now the name of this show, and it's probably a failure on that front. But nonetheless, we will persevere, delivering the typical news and commentary that you are tuning into this show to hear. Starting with more hiring at Wizards of the Coast in the D&D section. In this case, some pretty important roles. A senior game designer, as well as multiple art editors and an art director. So, that's only the people that actually make the book.
Yeah.
That's
some juicy stuff. And I can imagine that there are people, all kinds of people who are tuning into this job and going to give it their all. But we've seen in the past that these can be prominent people, but they also can be names that not everybody knows. And so I would encourage if you are interested in this, give it a shot.
Yep. The major thing to remember, though, that this is a senior game designer. So while anyone could apply, they are looking for someone with 6 years experience designing role-playing game products with significant credits from known publishers. So it's not necessarily someone who we're all aware of that has, been posting things with Kickstarter or on the DMs Guild.
Yeah.
But, I'm sure there will be plenty of folks who are listening to the show who fit into that category. So if you do apply for it, we wish you nothing but good luck. And the same for the positions, the editor positions. That's something interesting in the industry because Teos and I, having kept an eye on the industry for so many years, have seen the editorial staff for Wizards of the Coast expand and contract quite significantly. At some points having like 4 or 5 editors on staff, and then at other points using a totally freelance based editing team. So that's another thing to watch, as the year progresses and these hires are made, how the books change, how their quality changes, the number of books we see, if that changes, based on these hires, or if they're going from a more freelance based system of content creation and editing to an in-house staff. So, all of that stuff is important for we who cover the industry to keep an eye on.
One thing I'm very curious about is these positions for editors, as you said, that marks a big change. That idea of having editors in house again, and I welcome that. Though I think we've been very lucky that most of the books are overseen by very good editors that we know and have even had as guests on the show.
Sure,
but this doesn't say anything about developers, and that's probably because development is probably seen as something that one of the Wizards game designers sort of oversees. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to see that be, and maybe it is, but in the past when I worked, like say during the 4th edition era with Wizards of the Coast, there was a strong sort of development check-in moment, and that would often happen within that editorial group that existed back then. But that idea of really, I'm not the person that fine-tuned the words or anything like that, but I'm looking at it as a new set of eyes, thinking as the audience, how will this register with me? And very importantly, having the power to say, no, wait, folks, stop. We need to go back and adjust this so that it works well for the audience.
I thought that one of the editor positions was actually a developmental editor.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really good news. I did not look at the editor job description, so I'm really happy to hear that if that's the case.
Yeah,
I think that's something that would be really useful.
I'm on the site now, and I'm not seeing it, although I am 98% sure that when I looked at it, a few days ago, it did say developmental editor, which is a whole different kind of editing, obviously. It's not copy editing, it's not proofreading, it's actually getting in there and sometimes even being more of a project manager type in terms of getting all the content moving in the same direction. So, that's a very important distinction. Awesome. Yes, senior developmental editor. There you go.
Okay, fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. That's good, because I think as growth kicks in, it's all the more important. And I think you and I have remarked, like when we reviewed Van Richten's, right? Van Richten's felt like it had such a good cohesive vision, and that may be by happenstance. I mean, and I don't mean to belittle the people involved when I say that, but sort of it may have been because you had strong developmental oversight, or it may just have been that it was all really good, right? Yeah. Sometimes good ideas gel, but sometimes it's because you have this really strong hand that sees the overall picture and makes it work. And so having that as a formal job position, I like to see that.
Yep. And that being a senior position also is asking for 6+ years experience editing technical manuals or text-heavy games for known publishers. So there you go, those of you who have heard me say before that games are technical manuals. Wizards of the Coast agrees in terms of the senior developmental editor, that's what they're looking for.
That's cool.
Yep. So lots of good news on that front. Let's go from our head to our feet. So you want to tell us the news in D&D footwear?
Yeah, so people get feet at levels. Oh, wait, no, you meant, yes, you mean your actual feet.
Yes.
Well, we like to joke on this show that we reached the X stage of D&D, some new marker that just you never thought D&D would hit. And we have reached the Crocs stage of D&D because Crocs, which are those rubber shoes that have the sort of holes on the top, it's, very popular for gardening is, I think, how they kind of initially grew as a scene, and then just you see them all over the place. They can be decorated with these sort of little charms that you stick in them and clip through the holes in the shoes. Well, $25 now gets you a set of official Crocs D&D themed charms. Mm-hmm. There's an ampersand, a beholder, mimic, red dragon, gelatinous cube, etc. And boy, this is a day I never thought I'd see.
Yeah. Yep. So now you can wear your D&D Crocs while eating your D&D sandwich meat, and then following that up. Oh, in Italy.
Well, someday. I mean,
and
we hope.
And then washing it down with your D&D nerds dessert.
That part you can do.
So there you go.
We're getting very close to the D&D branded Bologna stage of D&D. That's the pinnacle that we aspire for.
We can retire happy on the day that we can go to the store and pick up our Oscar Mayer.
That's the day we close down D&D because it is achieved perfection.
Because it doesn't get any better than that. Speaking of getting close to perfection, Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, is now going to release on December 7th, but we are seeing some previews from reviewers and other influencers who have received preview copies. So we're seeing art shared on Twitter, blogs discussing what's in it. Have you heard any juicy rumors there, Teos?
And nothing. Well, there've been a number of things, and I always like avoiding the spoilers kind of towards the end. But something that I didn't think was much of a spoiler and is super fun and shows the kind of attitude of this book is that the adventure that comes with Strixhaven has 4 stages reflecting 4 years of study. And I thought that was, whoever thought of that and saw that, that's good, right? That's really nice.
Yeah. There was a book that Alligator Alley kickstarted, and I edited it, but I don't remember the exact title, and I haven't looked it up. But it's it was basically a tome of books that you can put into your campaign, and they put an adventure in, and I think Greg Marks may have written that, which did that same thing. It did, year 1, this is what happens. Year 2, this is what happens, and that's such a great Harry Potter-esque nod to show your progress, not only via levels and via the difficulty of the encounters that you take on, but as you get smarter and more mature in your education, the story is reflected. So that's great.
Yeah, and it's very clear from the things that are coming out that this is really taking to heart that concept of giving you the feel of being in a school situation with all that entails. Like there are rules for relationships and things like that, and so it's really trying to give you that experience of like what we see in any of those novels that take you to schools, and then you're young fledgling person, and there are fantabulous instructors and neat locations, and so I'm excited to see this.
Yeah. So it's not that you have downtime so much as you have extracurricular activities and right. Homework.
Yep.
Nice. So G4 has launched its new D&D stream. The show is called Invitation to Party. It has launched, and you can find it on Twitch at a link in our show notes.
Yeah,
I have not watched it yet.
Weekly.
Yep. Have not watched any of it yet, but if you are into the streams and watching people play for their stories, you can do so there.
Yeah. And Dave Walters has, yep. It seems like he's been everywhere these days.
It's true. Every time that there is a charity stream, every time Wizards is announcing a new stream, it seems like he is somewhere within it. So, and great ambassador for the game. So, very, very good on that. Last time we talked about D&D in popular culture and having the game appear on an episode of the CBS sitcom Ghosts. And I took the dive, Teos. I went in. And,
I did too.
Oh, did you? Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we can have a little discussion on this. So I'm going to go first. And, calm, rational Sean will say that my response to most sitcoms I watch is, well, that's 20 minutes of my life that I will never get back. And, it's not my thing. It's not my genre. It's not an art form that I gravitate toward. But I will say that this episode did not dissuade me from that opinion.
It was a sitcom. That part it was.
It was a sitcom, and it rose to the very, very low level that sitcoms strive for, as far as I'm concerned. But I thought the use of D&D in the episode was interesting on a few levels. Not necessarily good, but worthy of discussion about what D&D is seen as in our culture at this time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I'll just share my perspective. I enjoyed it. I also, in fact, I was struck by how long it's been since I've really watched a sitcom. I've watched a few things that are sort of sitcom-ish, but really that sitcom format where you feel like the laugh track should play. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time since I really watched something like that, and my wife and I remarked on that. That said, we did enjoy it. In fact, we enjoyed it enough to go back and watch a couple other episodes of the show. Mm-hmm. I guess this is one of the bigger new sitcoms that's out there, and so a lot of people are enjoying it. So it's fairly popular. So it's neat to then see a D&D episode in there. And the foundation for it is laid in that several previous episodes have one of the main characters, the guy in the relationship, wearing sort of geeky T-shirts throughout, like Atari T-shirts and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, without having watched any of the previous episodes, it sort of came across as, in this relationship between this man and this woman, he's sort of the geeky outsider. She's sort of the one that has things together.
Real skills and capabilities.
Well, she's the one that sees the ghosts. So right there, you're establishing in your narrative that she's the one that has the sort of the point of view that you're going to be following. So in essence, it makes him, without trying to, makes him the outsider in that, the sidekick and the sort of geek, which it's not done on purpose, but it actually shifts that narrative dynamic to her being the quote unquote normal one, even though she is the abnormal one in the sense that she's the one that sees ghosts.
Yeah. I like that. So yeah. So what did you think of the overall way that they portrayed D&D?
I think they did what most sitcoms do with topics like this. It's they try to make the thing, the quote unquote oddity, they try to make it show it's being normal, while at the same time undermining their own narrative by showing the people involved in it as different.
Mm-hmm.
So right from the start, we see the man in the relationship playing D&D online with his friends who are all in the same room, but he's online. So his connection keeps cutting out. He's obviously dragging the game down because of this. So they decide to go with their new friend and jettison him from the game.
Yep.
But instead of jettisoning him from the game by just saying, listen, instead of being mature about it, instead of being adults about it, they're like, well, we'll just kill his character. Right. And then he is sort of distraught not because he was kicked out of the game. Right. He doesn't come down the stairs and say, oh, they just kicked me out of the game. He's like, they killed my character. So it's this this motif of D&D players can't tell reality from fiction because they're more focused on their character than on. And I mean, later he does come around and say, I just lost my best friends to his partner, when he's trying to get her to understand how he's feeling. So, it's right from the beginning that was that sort of nerds are immature and can't separate reality from fiction, can't handle reality, and they have to do it through a game. That sort of thing. Right away, I was just like, no, don't do that. Have him be mature enough to say, I really like this game, and my friends, I can't do it with my friends because of technology. So let's find a way to do it here.
Yeah, it's interesting because there have been a few examples recently where people played D&D. Like I'm thinking of the episode of that show that had, like William Shatner and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on there,
right,
where sort of start to finish, it really was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And they also found ways to, by the end, sort of say like the famous people who, are sort of the fun acceptance factor. Well, they actually want to play with the girls in the group and not with the guys who are the original hardcore nerds.
Right.
Because you guys are sort of annoying. And actually, a lot of the most fun was playing with the women from the group, right? And so the overall, to me, the whole narrative sort of worked, and that D&D was positive, sort of start to finish, and the new players became established, and in fact, took off with it. And so I like that better. There were a number of points in the story of this where D&D, the D&D game sort of gets this feedback of like, well, I don't like it from some people, I like it from others, but in a sort of a annoying clash, rather than just like, yeah, it's okay, maybe it's not what I want to do all the time, but I like it. It just had that constant little negativity against it,
right?
And you didn't see that same idea that the wife by the end of it, say, was a pro at it or identified with it. She should have was always not working with it, right? Like always not feeling it,
right? And so when you're writing about something that's not in the mainstream or becoming mainstream, it's, if you want the real comedy to shine, make fun of the game, make fun of the thing itself and not the people that take part in it, because D&D is a silly game at its root, right? Mm-hmm. It sort of is. There are silly parts to it, but there are also silly parts of every single thing that we do. From playing poker to sewing to doing all sorts of things that we do as hobbies, that we do for relaxation, that we do for fun. There's silly parts of it. So show the silly things of the thing rather than pointing to the people that do it and make stereotypical references to them.
And what's really interesting to me is that both the character who is into D&D there, it was played by Utkarsh, who has been he was on Force Grey,
Okay.
So he's familiar with D&D and likes D&D a great deal. In fact, he requested that his character that gets killed off in the story is his character from Forrest Gray, Hitch.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's in real life nerd enough to be like, can we use my character name?
Yeah.
And a Dragon Talk episode talks about all of this and has the head writer for Ghost there, who is also a big D&D fan, who's running like 4 campaigns currently, like hugely into D&D. And yet we get this sort of tired story approach.
Yeah. But I mean, that for me, that's what a sitcom does to anything.
Maybe, I guess.
Almost, right? Yeah. You're sort of going for the lowest common denominator. And it's if you like sitcoms, that's fine. There is humor in it that I can absolutely understand why people find it funny, but it doesn't like delve into anything deeper than that surface laugh, which to me isn't worth the time. I can get the surface laugh pretty much anywhere.
Well, I think another thing that got me is not just that surface laugh, but I think there have been sitcoms that showed what D&D is a little better. Like this, one thing that was interesting is this was all 5th edition products in all the shots.
Yep.
Whereas usually it's been older editions.
True.
So that was one thing. It was kind of neat to see the current version of the game. Yeah. But other shows have done a very good job of showing why D&D is awesome, right? Like portraying the battles, the scenes, the interaction between DM and player, why you become invested in a magic weapon you get, or how the party might even disagree with one another and have these choices of like, do I do this or the other? And they've used that as parallels for their largest storyline of, say, like a father-son interaction. Dad, are you really going to go and do that when I want to do this? And that was lacking from this in fact, almost like, even though there was the possibility of it. So like at one point they're going to clear up a military dispute by playing the game, but they in fact resolve it in other ways.
Right.
So even what the game is sort of theoretically going to allow them to do, it doesn't really help do. And I thought that was sort of a strange choice.
Yeah, and it's the people from the 18th century that call the game boring. These are people that didn't have any sort of entertainment that we have today. No TV, no movies, not saying, yeah, this is boring. Let's just, So it's
weird.
Just, And I mean, the one part where I was like, you almost got it, was when, the female protagonist says, well, I'm going to play because I want to be with you. I'm doing this for you. And the male character said, yeah, kind of like I joined that book club.
Right.
You. Right. And I'm like, yes, there is the recognition that everyone has these hobbies that other people find boring or not fun or whatever, but you still come together to do them. But it was just like a throwaway line that you could have really, shown how, yes, this game is funny, this game is strange, this game is weird, but so is the other things that we do. And,
it's funny you mention that, because that was the thing that registered the most in our household was, my wife at several points where there were those kinds of moments turned to me and said, yeah, I'm sorry, because she does not game, right? She knows how much I love it. She will every now and then join a table with like the kids or something like that just to sort of make it work, but is clearly just doing it for me, right?
Sure.
And that was funny.
Yep. So, if you have an opinion on this and you saw the show, let us know. Let us know what you thought. Now, we're gamers, so we're going to get in on the action. And if you don't have the Essentials kit for some reason, you can get it for 50% off at Target, running a special right now. You can get it for $7.74.
Good
hours of fun, hours of playing for $7.74.
I mean, that's the price at which you should just buy like 40 and just give it out to everybody you know.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I try to do.
$7.74. That is shocking.
Yep. And it's funny because the Essentials kit was essentially made for Target to sell, so it's fitting that Target has that at a special price. And last bit of news, we may have reported on this, but we're going to again if we did. Winter Fantasy is February 2nd through 6th, 2022, in sunny, balmy Fort Wayne, Indiana, where they hate money. So if you are an Adventures League fan, particularly because this is an Adventures League heavy convention, even though they do run some other things and have a board game room set up generally, this is where you can get in. And I'm mentioning it also because Bald Man Games is disseminating a player survey where they are gauging interest in things like masks. How many slots would you come for if you're coming? What types of adventures are you looking to play? So if you're going to be there, let them know so they can have the information that they need to make the best decisions.
Yep.
And that is our news segment, unless you have anything else to add, Mr. Abadia.
No.
All right. So let's
dragging it up.
Let's kick it back into gear and talk about Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Last week, we covered the introduction, some of the lore changes, discussed the 3 new draconic races, and now we're going to continue with Chapter 1, talking about the new classes and other character creation aspects. So let's jump right in with subclass options, of which there are 2. The first will be the Monk's Way of the Ascendant Dragon. Do you want to begin our discussion here?
I pasted in this description that Fizban provides, and each of these books recently has had a character associated, right? We've had Tasha's, we've had Mordenkainen, we've had Xanathar, right? And it does a couple things. One is it's very clever branding. It's a way to sort of trademark all of your work. It's clever that way, but it also just gives a voice and a theme to everything. And so Fizban has his quotes here. And so this was, my favorite Ascendant Dragon monks all narrate their bodily attacks aloud with fun onomatopoeia, swish kapow indeed. Right? I just think that's really, really great.
I will have to. The next character I play will be a Way of the Ascendant Dragon monk, so I will definitely have to do that.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat subclass. Tell us about it, Sean.
Yeah. So the concept of this subclass is the monk integrates magic with its spirit to bring together both essences into the material plane. The first monastery of Ascendant Dragon monks is said to have been created by Bahamut themselves. So the first thing, we get that concept. We get a table of 6 possible ways that a monk might have gained their connection to this origin, which is becoming sort of a standard thing in many of these books. And then we get into the rules themselves. So at 3rd level, you get a Draconic Disciple. Draconic Presence. If you fail a charisma intimidation or charisma persuasion check, you can use your reaction to re-roll the check while you tap into the mighty presence of dragons. And then once you use it, you must take a long rest before you can use it again.
Or once you succeed.
Yeah, right. So if you fail, even after you re-roll, you can use it again until you succeed once.
Yes, on Reddit and online, this kind of came up as a topic that a lot of DMs will treat skills such as a persuasion check or a intimidation check as a sort of degree of success to decide how greatly you are influencing someone. And so there was sort of this even polling of people like, do you what would you do with this? And to what extent does it mean that sort of a player isn't really failing when they make a roll? They're sort of getting a particular outcome of it. And so re-rolling is sort of interesting. And in fact, whether you roll to a success level is maybe a hard thing to define in some games and at some tables.
Yeah.
I'm overall okay with it, but I thought that was interesting to sort of hear people discuss this.
Yeah, it is an interesting discussion. It doesn't change this particular rule because there is a rule that says this is a success, this is a failure. So your house rule does not make this rule any better or any worse.
True.
But I do agree with that thought that a lot of people probably do this for social type roles specifically, but even for roles where there might be a clear success or failure. I have noticed some DMs, and myself included, may do that sort of indie game concept of great success, success with a consequence or failure. So yeah, you're trying to break the door down. Well, you do succeed, but since you were just below the DC, you make a lot of noise while you do it.
Right.
That
Right.
sort of thing. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and especially when it's like, I'm trying to convince the guard to let us go, to pass through. I tell you what my argument is, then I roll and I get this particular result. And a lot of times it's not just the roll that the DM is using, right? It's an improvised roll. It's not a DC that's written out in the adventure. It's really, it's not like climbing a wall that has, DC 14 to climb. It's an on-off switch. You might decide to have a complication because you rolled a 13 or something like that. But in general, it's a fail success. But something like trying to persuade a guard to get through that may not be in the adventure, the DM's just sort of riffing off of what you roll and what you said and taking them together more than ever these days, I'd say. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yep. And there can also always be narrative consequences as opposed to mechanical consequences.
Yep.
There's something funny that happens or something serious that happens because while you did get the outcome you were looking for, there was this sort of one consequence that was narratively important as opposed to game mechanically. Yeah. Also, at level 3, you get Draconic Strike as part of your Draconic Discipline. So with Draconic Strike, when you damage a target with an unarmed strike, you can change the damage type to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. Okay, seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's neat in that, this is a nice thematic thing because it's your unarmed strike doing this, and it's not spectacularly powerful. In general, it'll be no difference. It's just thematic, but every now and then it'll be perhaps, hopefully rewarding, if you can exploit a vulnerability or avoid a resistance by doing so.
And what this really does, mechanically anyway, is get around the problem of the monsters where you need a magic weapon to hit it to do bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. With this, you can do, this sort of elemental damage that will probably, at least one version of this attack will actually fully damage the creature in question.
Yeah.
And the final element of Draconic Discipline or Draconic Disciple is Tongue of Dragons, which lets you speak, read, and write Draconic or one other language of your choice. A not unworthy level 3 suite of powers, I think.
Yep.
Seems pretty good.
But wait, there's more, Sean.
But wait, there is more, because at level 3 you also get Breath of the Dragon. And Teos, you want to take that?
Sure. So this basically gives you a breath weapon, and it's like what we saw with the races. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with this exhalation of draconic energy, either a 20-foot cone or a 30-foot line that is 5 feet wide. So you choose the area of effect you want, and then you choose a damage type. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and every creature in the area has to make a dex save against your key save DC. They take damage of the chosen type equal to 2 rolls of a martial arts die, half if they succeed. And that's not particularly strong damage because you generally have your martial arts die plus your dex, and your dex is probably as good as your martial arts die. So you're not getting much by getting 2 dice. So it really, where it works is because you could get multiple targets. So that's when it's going to play off. Later you get number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and then you can burn 2 key points to get it again, to use it again. You're unlikely to do that because there's probably better uses for key, but hey, it's nice to have the option.
Yeah.
At 11th level, you get 3 rolls of your martial arts die. There, mechanically, it tends to be now getting pretty good. That's now, your die has increased, and having 3 of them at this point, it is pretty neat. So it's going to grow in utility over time. And you had a note here, Sean.
Yeah. So one thing I'm noticing as I start to ponder, our game design choices this far into 5e, is we've switched over now to this number of times equal to your proficiency die, and I think that's a good metric of how to pace something as you increase in level. However, with these subclasses, if you multi-class, you could end up with 3 or 4 different subclasses if you multi-class in just the right way with just the right classes. If all of them are based on your proficiency die, you are getting an increased bump in power, because when you get up to 6 plus 6, you're getting 6 uses for each of the subclasses that you have that use this proficiency die as the metric. So it's not necessarily overpowered. Just in general, you could probably find a way to make it overpowered, but it's that one thing that doesn't quite scale the way that I think it's intended to.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's just a small thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something to note. I think it's a thing that designers want to put on their sort of checkbox, right, when they're looking at a subclass to say, how am I using proficiency bonus, and does that become overly powerful,
right,
if I just dipped in for this feature? If
you say, it's a D10 per proficiency bonus for this breath weapon, that would then scale unfairly, right, in the favor of the characters. But for the number of uses, unless it's a very powerful or very useful ability that you get to use once per proficiency bonus, then it's not necessarily a huge deal. It may get unwieldy, but not overpowered. So at level 6, then you get Wings Unfurled. When you use your Step of the Wind monk ability, you can unfurl spectral draconic wings from your back that vanish at the end of your turn. While the wings are there, you have a fly speed equal to your walking speed, and you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So again, you even if you only take 6 levels of monk, if you take 10 levels of something else, you're getting that proficiency bonus for the 16 combined levels.
And I like this feature. There are a number of things in this book that seem to suggest that maybe Wizards is not as careful of flying as they have been before. We've talked about on the show where I just see Wizards being very reticent to grant flying. And this is limited. It's just for the turn. But it's neat, and you can do it a number of times. And what it does give you is, if you think of martial arts movies where you have that sort of wushu ability to kind of go across rooftops or go up the wall and kick somebody, you can really dip into that here, which I think is just extremely cool. Having just watched, Shang-Chi recently, like that's just super fun to.
Having the fly speed end at the end of your turn, I think is just the difference maker there. So you can't fly up into the air and pelt someone with arrows or spells and not be touched. You have to be standing on pretty solid ground. Yeah. And then at 11th level, you get Aspect of the Worm. So now, as a bonus action, you can create an aura of draconic power that radiates 10 feet from you for a minute. You gain one of the following effects for that minute: a frightful presence, where you can frighten one creature within your aura. And they get to make the wisdom save against your key save DC, or frightened for 1 minute, and they can repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. Or resistance. You can choose a damage type when you activate the aura, and you have resistance to damage for that time. Anything else?
And so you get it back when you finish the long rest, or you can spend 3 key to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
10-foot aura is pretty limited. It's not a big problem for Fightful Presence because you generally, as a monk, can move all over the battlefield pretty easily. So, you just need to get within 10 of the creature you intend to hit with the Frightful Presence and you'll be fine. But with this sort of resistance aura, if you're in the lair of some dragon or something that's, spewing things, getting everybody within 10 feet of you is not easy. Even if you plan for it, if you tell everybody, hey, stay within 10 of me, good luck having that happen.
Right.
So it's sort of fairly limited in that respect, but in some key situations, it could perhaps work out where you can really, hey, everybody, huddle to me, and
right,
we're going through a trap or something like that.
Yep, that brings into question the party makeup, because if you have a paladin as well, that's going to add +6 to your saving throws, or then maybe, but otherwise, grouping together for that resistance means that you're actually going to be in the flames in the first place. So.
In the fireball.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And at level 17, you get Ascendant Aspect. You have the following benefits. You can augment your breath. So if you use Breath of the Dragon, you can spend a key point to augment its shape and its power. It becomes a 60-foot cone or a 90-foot line that's 5 foot wide. And then each creature in the area takes damage equal to 4 rolls of your martial arts die on a failed save, or half on a successful one.
So, that's pretty sweet, because a key point is not hard at level 17, and so that's a nice bump to do that.
And it also brings back that question that we mentioned last time of you can take one of your attacks from an attack action if you get more than one attack. Can you do that again and again? Because that now if you would normally get 3 attacks and you're doing this augmented breath 3 times, that's a thing.
Yeah.
As an ascended aspect, you also get blind sight out to 10 feet. You can see invisible creatures within the range unless it hides from you. Blind sight's pretty strong, but at 17th level, okay.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah, it's pretty strong. I mean, 10 feet is pretty good. So it's not just even adjacent, but it basically means that if you know where the invisible creature is, you can go stand by them. Mm-hmm. You are never worried about it.
Right.
And they're not getting, their sneak attack or their combat advantage on you. They're not getting the advantage against you on attacks, and you're not getting disadvantaged. So it's pretty sweet to have as an always on thing.
Yep. And the final element of Ascendant Aspect is Explosive Fury. When you activate your aspect of the worm, Draconic Fury explodes from you. You can choose any number of creatures you can see in your aura. Each of those creatures must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 3d10 acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage. Okay. So
it's cool because it's a boost to, it's when you turn on that aura, now you get to sort of do this explosion against just the creatures you want, which is pretty sweet. It's not, everybody there. And I think because it's a monk, I like this because your positioning is now sort of even more fun than it already is usually as a monk. So you can be like, I want to start here, turn on my aspect, explosion, to get these creatures. And this person in the aura is, Frightful Presence. And then I move over here and I attack and I breathe. And
right.
So it's pretty fun for monks.
Yeah, that's a lot of things a monk can do. But again, 17th level, unless something's like really, really out there, I don't have too many problems with 17th level abilities.
Yeah, 3d10 is not some enormous pile of damage at that level.
Right,
so it's just fun extra stuff you're doing.
Does it say, so when you turn on your aspect of the worm, how many times can you use your aspect? Okay, you have once per long rest.
Proficiency.
So okay, cool. I was just wondering how many times you could turn that on, but it's just the once per long rest. All right.
Or 3 key to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the Way of the Ascendant Dragon, the monk subclass. I'm fine with it. I liked it enough on first reading to say, hey, I want to try this.
Yeah. Cool.
And then we will get into the second one, Ranger, the subclass known as Drake Warden. Fizban has some more to say. They say that Rangers tend to look a lot like their bestial companions. That makes Drake Wardens among the most attractive of humanoids, i.e., you look like a dragon.
Yeah.
So with this, you use your connection to the natural world to take the form or to take a companion that's a draconic spirit, which manifests in physical form as a drake. As your power grows, the drake grows as well, going from a small four-legged companion to a majestic winged creature, large and strong enough for you to ride. So you want to ride a dragon? This is your subclass. And you also gain some of the powers of dragons yourself. We get the certainly omnipresent table of 6 possible connections to the draconic spirit and the draconic world. And then we get into the subclasses features. At level 3, you get draconic gift. So the bond that you share with your drake allows you to have the following benefits. You can learn the thaumaturgy cantrip, which becomes a ranger spell for you. And you can speak, read, and write Draconic or one other language of your choice. Seems kind of familiar. And as with last time, these are good, but they're leading up to the big feature. In which case, this is, drumroll please.
The Drake Companion.
All right. Tell me about the Drake Companion.
Yeah, so this is the key to the class, right? This class is like the Beastmaster that we saw revised in Tasha's and uses a lot of that sort of underpinning concept, a stat block that is going to get better over time, that kind of thing. And it's really a super flavored Beast Companion. So as an action, you can magically summon the Drake that is bound to you. So this resolves things of prior editions where you had to, carry it around all the time. It appears in an unoccupied space of your choice within 30 feet of you. It's friendly to you and your companions, obeys your commands, use the statistics that come in the book. And this stat block uses proficiency bonus all over the place, PB. So as your proficiency bonus increases, it's getting stronger too. One thing that's kind of funky is you get to determine its color, its scale texture, any visible effects of the draconic essence, which is neat, nice role-playing angle. But also you are determining its sort of like damage types and things like that with things like its breath weapon. And you can change that each time you summon it, which means that it's not like you're like, oh, I'm a green dragon, ranger. You can be green one time, blue the next, and fuchsia the following, right? It's sort of up to you how you dress it up, which is kind of interesting. It's on your initiative count, takes its turn immediately after you finish your turn. It can move and use its reaction on its own, but the only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action unless you're down or unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take another action. Remains until it's reduced to 0 hit points or until you summon it again or until you die. It's usually once per long rest that you can summon it, but you can expend a spell slot of first level or higher to summon it. So that gives you a lot of capability there.
Yep.
One interesting thing about this design is that because it uses your bonus action and you're a ranger, that means you probably don't want to be a 2-weapon fighting ranger because you will need your bonus action now can't be used for that offhand attack. So don't tell Drizzt. This is, if he was hoping for a figuring of wondrous power subclass to come along the way, he might not want that with his dual scimitar attacks.
True story.
So at level 7, Bond of Flame and Scale. What do you think of this, Sean?
Okay, so when you summon your Drake, it gets wings and a fly speed. Okay, that makes sense. And when you summon your Drake, you gain also a few other benefits. The Drake grows to medium size, and you can use the Drake as a mount if your size is medium or smaller. So you can ride, even as a medium creature, you can ride this medium mount.
That's interesting.
But if you while you're riding the Drake, it can't use its fly speed.
Right.
So, okay, I can see why that would be necessary at level 7. I'm cool with that. Any comment on that fly speed thing?
I think that having it have a fly speed is super cool. Again, Wizards usually is kind of really down on flying, but I guess because it's your companion and it's a little more vulnerable, then having it fly around is okay because it's not you. And but that lets you do a lot with it, right? You could have it fetch things, you could have it attack the thing that's way over there, up, on a balcony or something. A lot of tactical things, which makes it shine. I think that's really neat. I like that a lot. Um, the idea, but that does then contrast with when you're mounting if you're riding it, then you've got to get off to do that.
Right.
The idea that you can ride it when you're medium is very interesting because we've always seen the sort of like halfling on a riding dog,
Right.
gnome on a whatever. And so the idea that you could be, I guess, a centaur and theoretically ride this.
A centaur riding a medium
world explode when that happens. I don't know.
I'm sure. I'm looking forward to the world explosion.
That's the challenge to everybody listening is, make a centaur character that rides their Drake mount around.
And vice versa. You could put it on your back too. Why not? Also, as part of this level 7 bond of flame and scale, you get Magic Fang. The Drake's Bite deals an extra 1d6 damage of the type chosen for the Drake's Draconic Essence. And you had a thought there.
It seems to mechanically incorporate what Hunter's Mark would be giving you, so you don't fall too far behind other Rangers. You're probably a little bit below Rangers in terms of the damage, but you're getting some flexibility, and you don't have to cast Hunter's Mark, and it's kind of always on, so it probably works out.
Yep. And you also gain resistance to the damage type chosen for the Drake's Draconic Essence. So just like the Beastmaster with a little extra frosting on top. At level 11, you get Drake's Breath. As an action, you can exhale a 30-foot cone of damaging breath or cause your Drake to exhale it. So share a breath weapon. Why not? You choose the type you choose the type that does not have to match the Drake's Draconic Essence. So you want your Drake to be, a cold resisting Drake. Okay, fine. You can use fire though, or lightning or poison.
Yeah.
Then each creature in the cone must make a dexterity saving throw or take 86 damage on a failed save, half as much on a successful one. So you've got a 30-foot cone doing 86 damage at 11th level. Okay. If you can get lots of people in the target, great. It can originate from you or your Drake, gives you some flexibility. That damage will increase to 10d6 at level 15. And then once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finished a long rest or use a third level ranger. Now, a third level spell slot. Again, if you're multi-class, could it be a wizard spell slot? Interesting design choice to not, let's say, third level ranger spell slot.
Right.
But we'll see. Any thoughts there?
The damage is pretty high, but the thing to keep in mind with Rangers is generally their DCs don't tend to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of have to imagine that the target is making its saving throw. It's sort of the safe way to plan on it in terms of damage wise. At least when I play my Ranger, I don't choose anything with a saving throw because it's like an almost anything, because it's even it doesn't matter what level my Ranger's been. I felt like everybody was saving against anything I ever put on them because my number was so low.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep in mind in terms of the tactics of it. But I overall think it's neat. It's really weird that it can emanate from either you or your Drake. So explain that. But okay, I'm a centaur riding a Drake, and then I breathe. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have just had it come from it, which I think tactically would have been interesting because it can fly. it would probably make you use that feature more. So I probably would have just had it come from the Drake, but it's fine.
Yeah. Awesome. And finally, at level 15, you get Perfected Bond. You gain the following benefits when you summon your Drake. Empowered Bite. The Drake's bite attack deals an extra 1d6 damage. So now that's 2d6 total extra damage. The Drake grows to large size. And when you ride your Drake, you are no longer prohibited from flying. So at level 15, we get, go full fly. Very cool. And reflexive resistance. When either you or the Drake takes damage while you're within 30 feet of each other, you can use your reaction to give yourself or the Drake resistance to that type of damage, of that instance of damage, sorry. So you can use your reaction a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. And you can regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
think this is not, going to be at the top of your DPS charts, but I think this is a pretty flavorful subclass, very fun, solid variant. Beastmaster concept makes me wonder whether we're going to see more of these Beastmaster concepts, because you could certainly, reuse this with some other type of theme, and it would work really well too. I'm curious we'll see that.
Yeah.
Also, can I just say, Bond of Fang and Scale is like, your future, novel title. I mean, that's just great. I love the sound of that.
Flavor wise, I love this. Like you said, probably not the most powerful in terms of damage dealt per round, but I'm cool with the flavor, with the idea of that. So here's my question overall. So I play a chromatic dragonborn monk, third level monk of the Way of the Ascendant Dragon, 11th level Drake Warden Ranger. So now I can breathe fire. I can use a breath weapon as a racial ability, as a monk ability, and as a ranger ability.
Mm-hmm.
On my action, on my bonus action, and then as part of an attack. If I take an attack action, too much dragon breath? Is there such a thing as too much dragon breath?
I think your DM might feel like it's too much dragon breath.
See, I want a party full of these people, and all they do is go around breathing on people.
I mean, the friends to do it.
I do.
Everybody breathes all the time.
Yeah.
And on each other, right? Just
exactly.
Hurting one another.
Why not? That's part of the fun. Yeah, it's sort of a I like it, but it feels like that sort of specialization that only I can do this sort of thing just gets thrown to the wind when we get too deep into an edition.
I felt that reading all of these various things that grant you the ability to breathe, it sort of felt like, well, if you're a Dragonborn at the table, you might feel, and someone else takes, like, if you're a Dragonborn fighter and someone else takes one of these subclasses, you might be like, okay, I was going to breathe, but yeah, you breathe. That's fine.
Yeah. Why don't we all breathe? Awesome. Well, we've still got just a couple more things to talk about, but I'm kind of losing my voice, so why don't we
and then the magic together.
Yep. So we'll cover the rest of the character options and then the Dragon Magic chapter next time. So thank you all out there who are listening to us blather on and talk about our favorite pastime. And thank you to our patrons who support our Patreon and give us the money to support our habit here. So Teos, I've heard that you do things on the internet. Is that true?
There are rumors that can only be confirmed by going to alphastream.org and signing up for my mailing list. Then you'll know that it's true. Or you can find me on Twitter at alphastream. What about the rumors I hear about you, Sean?
They're all totally false, except for those times when I go onto Twitter at Sean Merwin and talk, or if the podcast itself tweets out from at Mastering DND, or when we're on the forums at forums.misdirectedmark.com, then it's true. But otherwise, totally false. And Mastering Dungeons is a Misdirected Mark production. So, Mr. Abadia, now that we have discussed all the ways we can breathe on our enemies, what are we going to do now?
We're going to, in true Acquisitions Incorporated C-Team fashion, vomit up a line of acid to kill some monsters.
Nice.